We found the first boot print 3 hours after Mark disappeared. That should have been impossible, because the print was fresh, pressed deep into the wet mud beside the creek, and Mark had vanished on the ridge behind us, 2 miles uphill, in the opposite direction. At first, nobody said anything. We just stood there under the trees, staring at the shape in the mud like it was going to explain itself. Then Lily whispered, "That's his boot." She was right. Mark had carved a little X into the heel of his left boot after slipping on a rock that morning. He'd joked that if he died out here, at least we'd be able to identify him by his signature footwear. Nobody laughed when we saw that same X pressed into the mud. The forest around us had gone completely silent. No birds, no insects, no wind. Just the creek moving over black stones, making that soft, wet sound that suddenly felt too much like whispering. We were 4 people when we entered Black Hollow Trail. Me, Lily, Aaron, and Mark. By sunset, we were 3. And by midnight, the forest started using his voice. Black Hollow wasn't supposed to be dangerous, at least not officially. It was a forgotten hiking route in the northern mountains, closed years ago after several people went missing. Online, people called it cursed. Locals called it hungry. Rangers just said the terrain was unstable and the trail markers were unreliable. But there was one story everyone mentioned: the listening trees. According to the legend, if someone disappeared in Black Hollow, they didn't leave completely. The forest kept something from them: their voice, their shape, their footsteps. And if you heard them calling your name after dark, you were supposed to ignore it. No matter how close they sounded, no matter how scared they sounded, no matter how much they begged. We thought it was just a story, made up to keep drunk campers away. Then Mark walked 20 feet off trail to take a photo of an old fire lookout tower between the trees, and never came back. One second he was there, raising his camera. The next, there was only fog. Not normal fog. It moved sideways through the forest, sliding between the trunks in slow white bands. It swallowed the lookout tower first, then the rocks, then Mark. Aaron called his name. No answer. Lily ran forward, but I grabbed her backpack strap because something was wrong with the silence. It wasn't empty. It felt like everything in the forest was holding its breath. We searched for 40 minutes. We shouted until our throats burned. We checked behind boulders, down slopes, inside a collapsed hunting blind covered in moss. Nothing. No dropped camera. No broken branches. No footprints. No Mark. Then, just before dusk, we heard him laugh. It came from deeper in the forest, not far, maybe 30 yards. A short, nervous laugh, the exact laugh he made when he was pretending not to be scared. "Mark!" Liddy shouted. The laugh stopped. Then his voice answered. "Guys?" Aaron almost sprinted toward it, but I stopped him, because Mark's voice had come from the same direction as the old trail marker, the one nailed to a tree, the one pointing away from camp. And beneath it, someone had scratched a warning into the wood. "Don't answer after dark." The letters were old, carved deep, black with dirt. Lily saw it and started crying. Aaron said, "That could have been there for years." Then Mark's voice called again, closer this time. "Guys, I'm hurt." It sounded exactly like him. Same pitch, same breathy panic, same little crack in his voice. But something underneath it was wrong, like the words were being played through wet cloth. Lily covered her mouth. Aaron lifted his flashlight. I said,
Mark, if that's you, say what happened this morning.
Silence. The beam of Aaron's flashlight shook across the trees. Then Mark's voice said, "I'm hurt." Same words, same tone, same pause. Like a recording. Aaron stepped back. That was the first time I saw real fear on his face. We decided to return to the campsite and call emergency services from the ridge, but the GPS had stopped working. All 3 phones showed the same thing. No signal, no map, no compass. Just a spinning gray circle. We followed the trail back anyway. At least, we thought we did. But after 20 minutes, we passed the same carved warning again. Don't answer after dark. Same tree, same old trail marker, same scratches. Aaron cursed and kicked a rock into the brush. The moment it disappeared between the trees, something kicked it back. Not rolled, kicked, hard. It bounced across the trail and hit Aaron's boot. Nobody moved. Then, from the darkness ahead, Mark whispered, "Why did you leave me?" Lily screamed. Aaron grabbed her arm and pulled her back. I aimed my flashlight toward the voice. For 1 second, I saw someone standing between 2 pine trees, tall, still, wearing Mark's red rain jacket. But the hood was up, and the face beneath it was too dark, not shadowed, empty. Then the flashlight flickered. When it steadied again, the figure was gone. We ran, not along the trail, just away. Branches hit our faces. Our boots sank into mud. The forest seemed to tilt around us, every tree trunk looking identical, every slope leading down into more fog. Then we found the creek, and beside it, the boot print. Mark's boot print. Then another. Then another. A perfect line of prints leading along the water. But there was something strange about them. They were too far apart. Each step was almost 6 feet from the next. Like someone wearing Mark's boots had been walking with legs much longer than his. Aaron bent down and touched one print. The mud was still filling with water, fresh. Very fresh. Then Lily said, "There are more." She pointed across the creek. On the opposite bank, dozens of footprints stood in the mud. Different sizes, different shoes. Some barefoot, some old hiking boots, some children's sneakers. All facing us, not moving, just printed there side by side, like a crowd had gathered at the water and stopped. Aaron whispered, "Those are from missing people." Nobody argued. Because hanging from a branch above the creek was a faded yellow backpack. I recognized it from the missing posters online. A student named Claire Voss had vanished on Black Hollow Trail 9 years earlier. Her backpack had never been found. Until now. Lily reached for it. I told her not to. Too late. The moment her fingers touched the strap, the forest filled with voices. Not one. Dozens. Men, women, children, all whispering from different directions. "Help me! I'm lost. Come here! I see you. Don't leave!" Then Mark's voice cut through them all, louder, closer. "Lily!" She froze. The voice came from directly behind her. I turned my flashlight. Mark was standing on the trail. No hood this time. His face was visible. And that was worse, because it looked almost right. Same eyes, same hair, same scrape on his cheek from earlier that day. But his smile was wrong. Not wide,
Not monstrous, just slightly delayed, like something inside his face had to remember how smiling worked. Lily sobbed, "Mark?" The thing wearing Mark's face looked at her. Then it said, "You answered." Aaron grabbed a fallen branch and yelled at it. The thing didn't react. It only lifted one hand and pointed behind us. We turned.
Across the creek, every footprint had changed direction. Now they were all pointing toward the water. Toward us. Then we heard footsteps, lots of them, soft, wet, slow, coming from every part of the forest. We ran along the creek until we found an old ranger station half buried under vines. The door was warped, but Aaron slammed his shoulder into it until it opened. Inside, everything smelled like mold and rust. There were maps on the wall, old radios, broken lanterns, and hundreds of missing posters pinned across every surface. Some were recent, some looked decades old. Faces faded to pale smudges, names circled in red, dates written underneath. Then Lily found a notebook on the desk. The last entry was written in shaking block letters. "They don't kill you. They learn you." Under that, "If someone goes missing, stop saying their name." None of us spoke. Because for the last 5 hours, we had been screaming Mark's name into the trees. Aaron found an emergency radio under the desk and started turning the dial. Static. Static. A burst of distant music. Then a voice. A ranger. "This is Black Hollow Station. Identify yourself." Aaron almost cried with relief. He grabbed the mic. "We need help. One of our friends is missing. Something is outside." Then the ranger said, "How many are with you?" Aaron answered, "3." Then the ranger said, "No, there are 4 breathing in that room." Every flashlight died at once. Lily made a sound I will never forget. Not a scream, smaller than that. Like her body understood something before her mind did. In the dark, someone behind me exhaled, slowly, too close to my neck. Aaron whispered, "Don't move." The radio crackled again, but this time, it wasn't the ranger. It was Mark, inside the room with us. "I was cold," he whispered. Lily started praying under her breath. Aaron struck a match. For half a second, the room lit orange. And we saw it. Mark was standing in the corner. But he wasn't alone. Behind him, pressed tightly against the walls, were silhouettes of people. Dozens of them, shoulder to shoulder, silent, watching. Their faces were pale blanks in the matchlight, and every one of them was wearing something from the missing posters. A blue scarf, a torn scout jacket, a yellow raincoat, Claire Voss's backpack. Then the match went out. Aaron shoved me toward the back door. We crashed through it and ran blind into the trees. I lost Lily almost immediately. 1 second her hand was in mine. The next, something whispered her name from the left, and she turned her head. That was all it took. Her fingers slipped away. I heard Aaron yelling somewhere ahead. I followed his voice. But then I heard Aaron yelling behind me, too. Same words, same panic, same voice. One real, one not. I stopped running. Both voices screamed, "This way!" The forest went silent again. Then, very softly,
My own voice whispered from the trees, "You're choosing wrong." I don't know why I survived. Maybe I didn't answer. Maybe I ran in the right direction. Maybe the forest wanted one of us to leave. At dawn, I stumbled out onto a logging road 15 miles from the trailhead. A search team found me 2 hours later. They never found Mark, or Lily, or Aaron. Officials said we got lost in dense fog. They said I was dehydrated, panicked, confused. They said the old ranger station burned down in 1987 and couldn't possibly still be standing. But last week, I received a package with no return address. Inside was Mark's camera. The memory card still worked. Most photos were normal: trees, fog, the old lookout tower, us laughing before the hike turned bad. Then came the last picture. It was taken from deep inside the forest, from behind us. All 4 of us were walking on the trail.
But between the trees ahead, there were 3 dark silhouettes waiting. One wore Lily's jacket, one wore Aaron's backpack, and one was me. Someone had written in mud, "You left before we learned your voice." The man standing beside our campfire had been missing for 11 years. At least, that's what the poster said. I didn't recognize him at first. He looked normal enough. Soaked hiking jacket, muddy boots, flashlight hanging from one hand. Maybe mid-30s. Beard, thin face, exhausted eyes. The problem was the date on the missing poster nailed to the ranger station wall 2 hours earlier. Same face, same jacket, same scar above his eyebrow. Same man. And when he stepped into the firelight, Emily smiled and said the worst possible thing. "Thank God. We thought we were alone." The man looked at her for a very long time before answering. "You still are." Then he sat beside the fire like he belonged there. Nobody spoke after that. The forest around us crackled softly in the dark, branches shifting somewhere beyond the trees. Wind moved through the mountains in long, low breaths. But underneath those sounds, I kept hearing footsteps. Not approaching, circling, slowly, like someone walking around our campsite just beyond the firelight. There were 5 of us on the trip. Me, Emily, Connor, Jake, and Rachel. Black Pine National Forest was supposed to be a 3-day hike before college started again. No phones, no roads, just mountains, lakes, and abandoned logging trails. The locals warned us not to camp near Gravewater Ridge. They said people disappeared there. Not often, just enough that everyone knew someone who knew someone. A cousin, a friend, a search volunteer who never came back. The stories were always inconsistent. Some people claimed there were caves beneath the mountain. Others blamed old mine shafts. One old woman at a gas station told us the forest copies lonely people. Connor laughed in her face. She didn't laugh back. She just looked at him and said, "If the trees start answering you, leave." We should have listened. The first strange thing happened before sunset. Jake found footprints near the creek behind camp. Bare footprints. Human. Deep in the mud. The weird part was there were no tracks leading toward them, only away. Like someone had appeared in the creek barefoot, then walked into the forest. Rachel joked about hillbillies watching us. Nobody laughed much, because the footprints were huge. Too long, too narrow, and spaced strangely far apart, like whoever made them wasn't walking normally. That night, Emily woke me up around 2 a.m. "There's somebody outside," she whispered. I listened.
At first, I heard nothing. Then, crunch, crunch, crunch. Slow footsteps circling the tent. Not animal sounds. Heavy, careful, human. Connor unzipped his tent and shined a flashlight outside. Nothing. Just trees, fog, darkness. Then Jake shouted from across camp, "Who the hell is that?" We all turned. A man was standing between the trees near the fire pit, motionless, watching us. Connor yelled, "Hey!" No response. The flashlight beam hit his face. That's when I noticed the scar above his eyebrow, the one from the poster. The missing hiker. His name was Daniel Mercer. He vanished during a solo camping trip 11 years earlier. Search teams found his backpack near Gravewater Ridge, but no body, no tracks, nothing. Until now. Daniel slowly stepped into camp. His clothes looked old, not ripped apart, not decayed, just old, like they'd been worn every day for years. Emily asked if he needed help. Daniel looked at her strangely before saying, "You shouldn't stay here tonight." Connor immediately got defensive. "Why?" Daniel stared into the trees behind us. "They know you're here now." Nobody asked who they were, because deep down, we already knew he meant the forest. Rachel offered him food. He ignored it. Jake tried asking where he'd been all these years. Daniel didn't answer immediately. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. "I kept walking." Connor laughed nervously. "That's not possible." Daniel looked at him. "You think these woods are normal?" Nobody slept after that. Daniel refused to sit inside the tents. He stayed by the fire all night, staring into the dark forest, like he was waiting for something. Every now and then he'd whisper, "Not tonight." At sunrise, Connor wanted to leave immediately. Daniel grabbed his wrist before he could pack. Hard. Too hard. Connor winced. "You leave after dark," Daniel said quietly. "Not before." Connor yanked his arm free. "You don't get to tell us what to do." Daniel looked genuinely afraid for the first time. "You don't understand the timing yet." The timing. That word stuck in my head all morning. We packed anyway. Daniel refused to come with us at first. Then, right before we started hiking, he looked deep into the trees uphill and changed his mind instantly. Like he'd seen something moving, something we couldn't. The trail north should have taken 4 hours. Instead, by late afternoon, we somehow circled back to our own campsite. Same fire pit, same logs, same crushed beer can Connor threw into the bushes earlier. Connor snapped. "We've been walking in a circle." Daniel shook his head slowly. "No," he whispered. "They moved the trail." Nobody argued with him this time, because the woods no longer felt real. The trees looked wrong somehow, too close together, too tall, and every direction felt watched. That night, the voices started. At first, they sounded distant, almost hidden beneath the wind. Then clearer. Someone crying. A woman calling for help. A child screaming somewhere far away. Emily covered her ears. Rachel whispered, "Those are people." Daniel stared into the fire. "No," he said. "They're bait." Connor finally lost patience. "What the hell are you?" Daniel looked exhausted. "I'm what came back." Then he pointed into the trees, because most people don't. At around midnight, we heard Jake's voice outside camp.
The problem was Jake was asleep beside me. "Guys?" The voice came from the forest edge. "Guys, help me." Jake sat upright instantly. His face turned white, because it was definitely his voice. Not similar, exact. Connor stood. Someone's messing with us. Daniel grabbed Connor's backpack before he could walk away. "Do not answer it." The voice came again, closer now, panicked. "Connor!" Then another voice joined it. Rachel's voice, sobbing. "I can't see anything." Rachel was sitting right beside us, not speaking, barely breathing. Then Emily whispered, "There's more." She was right. Dozens of voices slowly emerged from the trees, some crying, some begging, some whispering names, some laughing quietly. And all of them sounded human. Connor backed toward the fire. "What causes that?" Daniel answered immediately. "Exposure." "To what?" Daniel looked into the darkness. "The forest learns people." Nobody spoke after that. Then something stepped between the trees. Tall. Too tall. Its body bent strangely as it moved, like its limbs were jointed wrong. It paused at the edge of the firelight and smiled with Jake's face. Not a copied version. Jake's actual face. Same freckles, same eyes, same nervous half-smile, only stretched wider than a human mouth should move. Rachel screamed. Jake froze completely. The thing spoke using his voice. "Why are you scared of me?" Connor grabbed a burning branch from the fire. The creature tilted its head. Then more figures appeared behind it, human silhouettes, different heights, different clothes, all partially hidden between the trees, watching. Daniel whispered, "Don't let them surround the fire." That was enough. We ran. The forest exploded with movement around us, footsteps everywhere, branches snapping, voices calling our names from every direction, sometimes sounding terrified, sometimes laughing. At one point, I heard my mother's voice screaming for help somewhere uphill. She'd been dead for 3 years. Emily almost followed it. I dragged her back. Then Connor vanished. 1 second he was behind us, the next, silence. We heard him yell once, very far away, then nothing. Daniel didn't even stop moving. "He answered something," he said. We found an abandoned ranger cabin near dawn. Daniel barricaded the door immediately. Inside were hundreds of markings carved into the walls. Tallies, names, dates, warnings. One sentence repeated over and over. "If you hear yourself outside, do not look." Jake found old cassette tapes beneath the floorboards. One still worked. Daniel refused to play it. Jake did anyway. Static filled the cabin, then a terrified man's voice. "They imitate the missing first because nobody questions familiar faces. They learn by watching, by repeating, by getting closer every night." Something banged against the cabin wall outside, hard. Everyone jumped. The tape continued. "If one of them starts acting human, you waited too long." Another bang, closer this time, then scratching. Slow fingernails dragging across wood. Emily started crying quietly. Then the tape reached its final recording. The man whispered, "They aren't trying to kill us." Then, "They're trying to replace enough of us to leave the forest." At that exact moment, someone knocked on the cabin door. 3 soft knocks. Then Connor's voice said, "Guys, let me in."
Rachel rushed toward the door. Daniel slammed her against the wall before she could open it. Connor's voice sounded terrified now.
Please, it's freezing.
Jake yelled through the door.
Tell us what happened at the gas station before the hike.
Then Connor's voice answered perfectly. The old lady warned us. Jake looked relieved, until the voice continued. She said the trees answer people. Jake's face dropped, because Connor had never heard that conversation. Only Jake had. The thing outside laughed softly. Then more voices joined in from the forest, hundreds, maybe thousands, all whispering together. Not random words anymore, a sentence repeated over and over. Let us out. The walls began shaking, windows cracked. Something massive moved outside the cabin, circling slowly through the trees. We heard branches snapping 30 feet above ground level, like something enormous was climbing through the forest canopy. Daniel finally looked truly hopeless. They're gathering, he whispered. For what? Emily asked. Daniel looked at us carefully.
Then said, because one of you already answered them.
Then Rachel started crying. Not normal crying, guilty crying. She whispered, I heard my brother's voice earlier. Everyone stared at her. Her brother disappeared hiking 5 years ago. She looked sick. He sounded real. Daniel closed his eyes. How long did you follow it? Rachel didn't answer immediately. Then, I don't remember. The cabin went silent. Then Emily slowly whispered, Rachel. Rachel looked up and smiled, too slowly, exactly like Daniel had beside the fire. That same delayed smile, that same wrong timing. The knocking outside stopped instantly, like the forest was listening. Rachel's voice became softer, almost comforting. You don't have to be scared anymore. Then all the voices outside whispered together. She opened the way.